Okay, so next we have a brilliant panel which has been organised by the Azadi Network, how Iranian women define the point of no return. I'm just going to introduce Negin, and then she's going to introduce her guest. So Negin Shiraghaei is an Iranian activist and entrepreneur, and she has launched a group called Azadi Network, which is a non-partisan group of Iranians in the diaspora that focus to empower efforts in regard to the women life freedom movement in Iran. Negin is a former news presenter and reporter for BBC World Service, Persian-based service in London, where she was a lead news anchor on the BBC, as well as managing projects in the newsroom. She spoke twice at United Nations Human Rights Council and has campaigned for women's rights. She co-founded March Health, an AI-powered women's health solution that eases physical and psychological discomfort, focusing on women's sexual and reproductive health. After leaving the BBC, Negin founded Open Growth UK, a communication company to elevate purpose-driven individuals and startups, and that closed after the launch of March Health. She's been campaigning against systematic harassment of female journalists and is also a director of Coding for Girls Limited, which is great because we have some women in here who are working with data and programming. In November 2017, it was reported in the Times that the Iranian authorities had tried to influence Negin's reporting through the intimidation of her family in Iran. She talked openly about her experience on the BBC in an interview, including the harassment of her family. Previously, Negin worked as a journalist for the Iranian news outlets Hamshari, newspaper Shag, newspaper Etemad, and several news agencies. Please join me in welcoming Negin here today.
So, so happy to see your faces. What I decided is I'm going to change the format of what we're going to do here a little bit, make it more interactive, and then get your feedbacks, and then walk through why and how the Iranian women define the point of no return. I'm sure this audience can contribute a lot to that conversation as well. So before I jump to that, Samaneh Savadi is a women's rights activist and lawyer who's been working tirelessly within the past years. I know Samaneh from her rooms on Clubhouse, actually. That was the first time I met you. Like, I got to know your work and what you're doing, which has been working on social media platforms, Instagram specifically, on educating Iranian women inside Iran and mobilizing them around different causes around women's rights. And I think that's why I believe this is the best panel, because like you can contribute to a lot of what happened on the ground within the last 10 decades. And then we can go a little bit back and give some kind of understanding what happened. We got to the point that since September, I think you agree with me on this, that we've witnessed a feminist revolution in Iran, and there's no point of return. That Iranian woman with every single cell in their body defined that moment. Do you want to open that? And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you to open that. Like, there's a timer here. 5 minutes of that. Give us why you believe that we passed that point of no return and how Iranian women define that. I'll try to add to that, and then I'll open the room, and then you guys can come in, and yeah, we can have a conversation.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you for a great introduction. And it's lovely to see you all, especially those familiar faces. I believe what is happening, what happened in Iran, is a result of decades of feminist movement inside Iran. So many people look at it as a new thing. It's just like a new revolutionary movement, which I believe it is not something new. It was what is happening today is based on what was going in the past. The example I always say about how important is the word woman in Iran was a negative word. Like, people didn't want to be called woman. If you would say to your friend, hey, woman, or woman, they would be like, can you call me a lady or like something else? Woman is a negative word for them. Even in a legal sense, the parliament in Iran refused to use the word woman for a the prevention, the violence against women. They changed it to preventing the violence against ladies. So that word was that much of a, negative links for that word. And then the society accepted the slogan, woman, life, freedom. That shows how much we were just ready, women were ready to take back all the confidence and all the dignity that was taken away from them. And they were just like, no, this time we are taking it all back. If we look at it, the first time that it was a big protest before was from the women inside Kurdistan, and then women's movement. The woman gave that call for a protest in Tehran, and it all started from that point. And the slogan that we could hear was "Enqilab zanane nemiravim be khane." Like, people from the beginning were thinking, we are not going to go home. This is a women's revolution, and we're going to stay in the street. I totally understand. While later, this feminist aspect of the revolution, the revolutionary movement, started to be less and less. It is totally understandable. Not everyone in the society is a feminist. Not everyone wants to be. But that doesn't change the reality of what happened and what's going on. So I'm sure probably some people would not agree with that. But again, how we can accept the slogan, women, life, freedom, which not a revolutionary movement about women, like the movement that believes no society would be free unless the women of that society are free. We can't make a division between that movement and the movement that we are seeing inside Iran. And the women, I think women inside Iran, they took back what it was taken away from them, and they are not going to hand it back again at all.
That was really quick. All right, so I'll try to do the same. You used 4 minutes. I'm going to try to be like that. So when I look back at the 4 decades of what happened in Iran in regards to women's rights, I can see there has been a kind of mindset shift. So the Iranian, as you look at the Iranian politics, the same sort of shift happened inside the women's movement in Iran. So you had, at the beginning, there was the women's rights movement didn't start with that. It has more than 100 years of history, but it became prominent after the revolution, in my view, because of the education system that spread the literacy across the country. So women's rights, instead of being an elite, educated women's cause, it became something that people started being aware of in different forms and shapes. But all of those years and centuries of patriarchy in the country prevented women from being out there asking for their rights. By 1990s and late, when Khatami came to power, the women's rights movement in Iran started to gain spaces, started to have some resemblance of a movement that could change the society. And one of the elements of it was that the women close, like for example, like Faizeh Hashemi or people close to the power, decided to push the boundaries in their own spaces and create a space for that. And the other women started to using those spaces for themselves. So we had the campaign, 1 million signature campaign, that was campaigning for the rights, legal rights of women. But all of these efforts were targeted on certain things and mostly reforming the existing dictatorship. So they weren't going for changing the system. They believed still reform is possible within the system they live in. And that was part of the things that mobilized different types of the people in the country. So you had feminists who were coming from the Muslim background, you had feminists who were much far, didn't believe in Islamic Republic, but they thought, this is the only space I can work on, and I'm going to use this space. I was born in 1981 in Iran, and I grew up in a it's a middle-class family in a small town in northern Iran. My ideology and my way of thinking and living came from centuries of my family background. We were much more open about, hijab or like how to be a woman, and we actually were like had the matriarchal kind of background. So for someone like me, I couldn't resonate. I did sign a campaign, but I couldn't resonate with the rest of the movement. I couldn't understand why something as simple as mandatory hijab cannot be part of this campaign. And I couldn't call myself feminist until years later when I moved here, because I couldn't see myself in that movement. But I would still use that space for the things I could do in the society. I'm going to fast forward this. This is important to understand at these times, a woman's autonomy over their body, especially reproduction rights, was in its highest, not because they believe that women have these rights, because the population was growing massively and they wanted to control the population, as you can remember. So and then in little small cities and villages across the country, men and women were educated on the reproductive rights. Vasectomy became something from taboo to something that men were encouraged to do and would do it openly and talk about it. Condom distribution was something that we've heard. Khatami started doing that in Tehran. During Khatami, we had that. So all of these rights as well were spreading around the country, and people were learning little by little about these rights. Then we have 2009 and Ahmadinejad. By 2009, half of the population of the universities are women. We have more women taking spaces in higher education than men, but the work space is still limited for women. And we see that shift in the political scene, that people started thinking, political reform doesn't gonna lead anywhere, so we cannot reform a dictatorship. That mindset moved to the women's rights movement as well. So people started thinking, we are losing every step our rights. Ahmadinejad came to power. He took away the reproductive rights. He put quota. Like the structure, the government, not he himself. But during his time, it was much easier to implement. So they put quota on university seats. They limited the access of women to certain science fields, so they couldn't study whatever they wanted anymore. And you were limited to the provinces you were born. So the geographically, the move that women were doing and learning from each other and other spaces across the country, that was much more limited again. And as well, we saw a lot of changes in the law in the workplace, as a maternity leave, they give you expanded maternity leave, and then you lose the job you have after that. So all of these little elements were playing. And at the same time, you have people like you, because then we have social media and Instagram massively, especially Instagram, become accessible to the remotest places in Iran. It's not filtered. It has the capacity to create a shop, so you can do whatever you want at home and sell it, cook, tailor something or whatever. So women are using Instagram more and more, and activists like Samaneh and the others starting educating women on their rights. And it's the same space, so people are coming across these rights. And as well as that, they're living in a society that, the mothers are much more aware of their own rights than their parents. So my mom, she knew her rights, but she wouldn't support me when I was going to the streets for protest, because she believed it's easier to, kind of navigate the patriarchal system than going against it. But by 2009 and then afterwards, we have generations of moms who are believing in their own rights, who couldn't actually change the society for the better. They tried, but now they're believing that the only way forward is changing the system and have it overall. And that's why we see a lot of younger generation who are much more aware of their rights being able to go to the streets and having the support of their parents, and seeing the moms with chador going through the same streets with the girl who doesn't wear chador, and supporting them. And I think that's the beauty of it. And the war the war of the streets are now back in the households, because amazingly, this woman realized that if we want to change the patriarchal system, and I do believe Islamic Republic is the embodiment of patriarchy in a political system, and we talked about gender apartheid and all of that. That war, they brought it to the household, and if we want to change the society, we need to take that war back to the household, change the patriarchal system from within and out on the streets, and then change the government. And I think that happened. We see the struggle every day the women are doing, even now after all of these oppressions. Yeah. Bravely, they go on the streets. They don't care about what the parents are saying or the dads are saying or the police are saying. They repeat these brave moves every single day. And that's what makes me hopeful that this political system would change. I do believe that the mindset, the feminist revolution has happened. The change in the political system would come later. There is no doubt in that.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking when you said about your background? I was thinking, for me, it was totally opposite. I'm coming from a very conservative background. So the fight started at home and then went to the streets. So it was just like, first I fought with my father and then the whole family. And I think for so many other people it's the same. The fight was at home, and then we practiced that so much. So now I believe so many of these women inside in Iran, in the street, they are just like practice. They are just like professional. They come to the street and you just like imagine the system as a father, as that patriarchal family, and they know how to shout, they know what they want. So I think that is like back and forth. So the fight is at home and goes to the street, and then you see, actually the home fighters still exist. So you go back there, you have a couple of punches there, and come back to the street. That's fascinating. But I think, yeah, we never have been out of practice. We will all the time, we're practicing this. And when it comes to education, I never read that quote in English. It says, I hope I'm translating it from Farsi to English, that if the woman that you cut their feet brought up a daughter has a wing to fly, something like that. I never read it in English. So that said, and when it comes to the education, it's not just, I think it is social media, of course, is playing a role in that. Because we had a more accessible education for everyone. At the same time, we could see people who are living a different life. When I was a teenager, I didn't know even what I should wish. I didn't know how people in different countries are living. I was like, maybe if my parents would let me become a singer, that was the end of my dreams. I had no idea I could be a dancer. I don't know, but when I think about what I could wish, it's very limited, because I didn't know how other people are living. But the younger generation inside Iran, not only they have access to education, but they see that works. Like, even today, when I talk, for example, about family structure inside Iran, I hear some people very rarely say, but in a family, someone should say the last word. I'm like, look at other people. You think it is what Islam says, and in Iran, it's just like a man is the boss of the family. And they believe, because they think someone should have a last word. But it's just like, no, there is another system, and it works. So many people are living that. Like people like other feminists who are educating people. They are not only educating, I think by showing the different aspects of their own life and other people's life, they are saying not only we should have access to this, but also it works as well. For example, the idea of you can live without having children and you can be happy. Before, it was no example. Everyone had their one auntie that never had a kid and was depressed. But now they see, oh no, there are so many people who don't have children and they are they live happily ever after. So I think that works as well. It is, that's aspects of having a social media, having access to education, and seeing a different perspective, different way of living, and so they want it. When I look at them, I'm so proud of this school kids in Iran. At the same time, I have deep down a layer of envy that's like, oh, I wish I knew that. I wish I could live like that. I was dreaming of it, but I didn't know that that could be a way of living as well. With all of these saying, I wanted to, about when it comes to a system and how before we were talking about what UK should do, what the government, what we want from the world. When we are talking about killing the patriarchy, we don't talk about killing the patriarchy in our neighborhood. It's just not, oh, in my household, there is no patriarchy, so it's over. Or if we look what happened in the state about abortion, if patriarchy exists, it's going to come and take you at some point. So we should bring the idea of the women in Iran are fighting the patriarchy because what they want is the right to have a control over their body, over their life, over their destiny, and that is a fight against patriarchy. And that shouldn't be only a fight of Iranian women. That should be a fight of everyone in the world. So I think that could, when we are talking about a feminist revolution inside Iran, we could look at it from this perspective as well. The perspective that if we look at it as a feminist revolution, which is a feminist revolution as well, it's not a fight of us as Iranian women. It's a worldwide fight.
This brings me to one of the things that we are doing at Azadi Network, and all of you can support it, and we really appreciate it. It's an international campaign that we are doing on gender apartheid. We're focusing on women in Iran and Afghanistan because of the legal framework around it is much easier to do. The thing is, apartheid is linked to race. The fact, and there's a lot of other things that's happening in the world, the fact that women's body, autonomy over their body is not recognized, someone is taking over control of our body, is not recognized in the legal framework, international legal framework as apartheid. I think it's something that it should change, and we need to stop that sooner better than later. The other aspect of it is, and that really pissed me off, is that under international law, if you force a clothing or not wearing a clothing based on a religion, if someone is like wearing amameh because they believe it's part of their religion, and you force them to wear it or not wear it, it's recognized crime against humanity. Women's clothing over centuries and years, it's over and over again been controlled by the societies and men, and nobody cares about it. And that needs to change. And it will change when we all get together and shout about it and create the movement. It's not going to change because people think, I'm going to go out there and help these lovely women to live a normal life. They're going to control us on every single step. They're going to make sure that they have control over women's body, because that gives them power and that gives them a sense of stability and control over the society. The extreme of it is in Iran, Afghanistan, but the example of it, as you mentioned, we are seeing it in every single society across the planet. It's not something like I've been talking during this movement, a lot of women from different feminist movement, from different groups are reaching out. I've been talking to Brazilian women, they're experiencing the same. I'm talking to the Mexican women, they're experiencing the same. US, exactly, Polish, especially right now in Ukraine, the Polish is a really dire situation that the women are going through under abortion. And even in here, in this country, I'm like surprised by seeing like how this conservative, patriarchal mindset exists and thrive.
You know what I was thinking when we are talking about how they are controlling women's body in countries like Iran, they are doing it based on law, like legally you have to do this and that. And in so many other countries, even here, they are doing it through shaming and victim blaming. Like if something happens here for you, sexual harassment or so, they're going to shame you of what you were wearing. That is another way of control. It is not legal, but it is what is happening in practice.
I want to hear you. Yeah, come on.
So, as you said, I just experienced the UK. It was really shocking me. I had a project I wanted to do in a public area. It was a kind of topless. But what I got, it's a kind of crime as a woman be topless in public area. But for men, you can see them all around the city. They are just running, jogging. You can see them topless on a park, but you never see a woman, because if they claim for you, if someone just passed by you and said, I got hurt by seeing this woman topless, and you can be criminal.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's the reason.
It's putting the weight of the dignity of the society on the shoulder of a woman. Like you as a woman, all the dignity of the society is on you and your body.
Yeah, but that was for me. It was, we are here. So to be honest, that reminds me of, okay, I'm just Scape Iran. I came here to looking for freedom, but I'm not free. I'm not experienced that. So maybe, okay, I cannot wear hijab, or I'm able to whatever I want, but it doesn't mean that I'm not able to whatever I want, because if I want to be topless, I'm not allowed to do that. So
they don't give you freedom, they give you something. So here you have something.
Yeah,
it's not that freedom that you could wish you have.
Yeah, but the thing, it was really interesting for me. If I talk about myself, it was the interpretation of freedom has been changed during the year of my experience of life, because when I was in Iran, freedom has a totally different meaning for me. But when I'm here, I'm experiencing more, I'm seeing more, I just have a conversation with my friends, different background. Now I'm gonna do really what your expression of freedom is. It's really interesting for me, because each of us has our own definition for that.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I believe that so many times when we think about freedom, we have something else to compare with. So as we see men are free to be topless, we're just like, so I want to be as free as that.
Yeah.
And then it may go beyond that, but it is not something that by nature we can have a definition of a freedom is this. I think as a human being, as we go, we always have something else to compare with that. I see that amount of freedom is what I want.
I think in a political system I can have some sort of definition for that. I would say when we are talking about freedom in a concept of political system, for me it's the freedom of choices. You should be able to choose the way of your life, your future, and where you want to go, how you want to do it, every step. At the same time, it's really entangled with the basis of a society that creates a kind of a platform or equal opportunities for you to be able to achieve your potentials. So freedom for me is really connected with a certain level of social security for every person in that a nation, to be able to live their life the way they want it, because the economical aspect of it is really important. If you're poor, you don't have medical care, you don't have a roof on the top of your head, you won't be able to have the choices. There are so many researchers in economy that shows people with poverty makes you dumb. They won Nobel Prize for that research. It's a couple that they've done this research that shows when you are poor, you're not capable of making good decisions. you're always making divorce decisions and going back down the spiral of the poverty because you don't have the capacity, the safety net of being able to sit back and look at the options and make a decision. You're always just running to survive.
So as you said, always a state of being freedom, always connected to something else. It could be anything. It could be our location of living. It could be our government. It could be our belief, our financial issue, or anything. Yeah. So I'm just talking. Sorry, that's just because my struggling. When I'm thinking about freedom, so we can never can have access to freedom as a freedom. Always in a just state of that.
I think we'll just go back to the point that 400 years ago they were burning women in this country for being witches. So the progress is slow, but we're at different stages. So let's just leave it at that. Lily, have you got a question you'd like to say?
So patriarchal, religious misogyny that we are facing. I was coming down from Lambeth to Trafalgar Square in September, just a few weeks before, maybe a week before the tragic loss of Gina. And I was exposed to a march as long as about 2,000 people, and priests in the front, families in the background. And when I asked, what is it? The signs they had, it kind of looked like Extinction Rebellion, and I'm part of it, so I was like, ooh, let's join in. When I asked them what it was, they just gave me, they wouldn't give me a leaflet first, and then in the very end of the leaflet, it says pro-life. Pro-life. Months after women lose the right to their bodies in America, we see that starting and becoming more prominent as a possibility in the UK. So me and my loud voice carried on my scooter throughout their whole march, my body, my choice.
Well done. Well, that's good.
You got to. I mean, you got to. And I want to know how are we as a society living in a free country like UK, are we going to stop such, or because democracy exists. I mean, the freedom of religion is there, but the religious misogyny that's being placed in people's homes and in their daily lives is very prominent in this country. We need that gone.
No, I totally agree with you. And I don't know if you... So there's so many aspects to the patriarchal system in the UK that you can explore and campaign on or join the movement. One of the things, unfortunately, I want them to be much more powerful, but they're not yet. It's a political party called Equality for Women. One of the basic rights of women, and I've seen that in Scandinavian countries, that how it can massively change the space for women, is childcare. As simple as that you as a mother, you have to spend all of your earnings on a childcare. And this was something, in suffragette movement they were asking for. And it hasn't been achieved in this country yet. That's one part of it. The other part of it is the rights of Muslim women. That is really, complicated and what do you call it? Like really diluted. Yeah. That with religious extremism as well as so. No one dares to talk about women's right in the space of Muslim communities. That's one other example. There's so many examples, as you mentioned. But the good thing about democracy or living in the UK is we can be active. What makes me really sad and a little bit pessimistic about the future is that right now our problem, the cost of living crisis is going to have a massive effect on women's rights. The women we had COVID, and it's well researched and documented the effect of COVID on women's rights and how massively it affected women in the households. The same is continuing now, and when we are coming out of this recession, I'm not sure how much space the women have in this country, and it's really important to continue the fight and making sure this happens here and we don't lose the space. There's also, I think that's why it's important to talk about women's rights in different spaces and making sure we get all of these allies to join us as Iranian British to fight for this, because alongside of it, all of these different rights are important to different people in different societies. Are coming.
And they are connected as well.
They're connected. Yeah.
You know, I hate they use the word pro-life. I can't stand it. I remember at the very beginning when it was Women, Life, Freedom, when the slogan came out, someone wrote on Twitter, that is a pro-life slogan. I would call this pro-life. It is really pro-life. Which it is just like so insulting that they use a pro-life thing.
I have another topic that I was wondering about. Do we say trans women are our allies because they fight for what they're wearing, what people who were born as men and experience the freedom of life in patriarchy, now joining the second-class citizens women that we are, and suddenly experiencing, oh, it's not that I'm trans, I'm getting rejected. It's just that I'm a woman and I'm getting rejected. How do we deal with that?
I hope they understand that.
Yeah. No, actually do.
They do, and I think that's why in Women Like Freedom, the definition of woman doesn't limit itself to woman as a female in the traditional cis female sense. It's anyone other than cisgender men when you're talking about it. But I think that conversation, I think there's that part of it that I still need to educate myself on. The rights of trans people, it's the space has been so much pushed away, and has been isolated so much that as a feminist, I don't have that much of understanding of it. And I'm really scared when I make a comment because I don't know if I'm hurting people, because I've never experienced their pain. And if you don't know their pain, the way you talk, the way you act can harm them without even knowing. And that's, I think, the biggest struggle for me. But I've seen, at least in the Iranian space, there are some trans activists that are doing really good job on educating others. But we definitely need much more education.
Yeah, exactly. I think I believe we should try to be as, inclusive as possible. Like when we have, it shouldn't be me and Negin answering this question. It should be, we should be inclusive enough to. So there was a trans woman here and could answer that. But the thing is, that is, you see, when we, as a woman, we are like, okay, we should have women in this meeting. The men are like, who told you to don't come? You're welcome. Come. Just like, oh no, you should make the space safe enough for us. So I want to mention, I don't mean we should invite them. We should make the space safe enough for them to feel like they are welcome. Yeah, exactly.
I think we have 2 minutes. If any last questions? Sorry, I'm really aware of timing usually.
I'm just going to turn everything we've said and ask that when this whole movement started as a women movement, and I think the whole world got excited that this is a first time women-led revolution, and wow, this is going to change the world. And we had everybody, and then we lost them. In my mind, in my words, maybe
we
not.
didn't.
Well, it lost the
Not
traction.
yet. We're hanging on there.
But we lost that support. This is a pinnacle moment in the whole history. What went wrong? What do we need to do going forward?
Go ahead.
I think there's limited, so we should be realistic. First of all, that amount of emotional engagement is not sustainable. And we need to make sure that our audience, as well as us, can kind of spread out their energy throughout the movement. Because this is, you run marathons, and you're going to run in London marathons this weekend, so you know how you have to spread your energy. So we need to make sure that our audience are there as well. The other part of it is, I think we got disappointed in the movement over time in certain moments because of the propaganda the Islamic regime was putting forward, because we were expecting it to happen sooner than, shouldn't take time. and especially social media has been overtaken by the Iranian propaganda, the Iranian regime's propaganda. And that's an important factor that drove the movement to the level it was and then brought it down. We're not going to go to war with them because they have millions and millions of dollars and investments in that. The Supreme Leader came out and said, yeah, go and take over the social media. It's been taken out of our hands and we need to take it back. They put 8,000 people recently, a lot of money in it. So we should be a little bit more smart on how we are using it, strategic about what we are doing, and then not relying our success only on the visual aspects of it. How many celebrities are coming, supporting us, or what? There are much more instrumental frameworks that we can use and push this.
Yeah, I think I'm more positive. What I believe, it was a momentum, you remember the momentum of a Me Too. It doesn't, now we are not that. Everyone is not talking about the Me Too movement anymore, but the Me Too is there. It had its impact. About Zendegi Azadi, I feel we had that momentum and we used it. The whole world is aware of it. I don't think it was a wasted opportunity. I think the opportunity was there and we did everything in our power that we could do. People inside Iran, they paid the price that they paid is unbelievable. From the beginning, I wasn't thinking it. I remember it was 2 weeks after it started. I was in Paragar. We were talking, and I was saying it doesn't matter what we're going to happen in this street in the next couple of weeks. At that point, I was thinking it's going to finish at 2 couple of weeks. But I was like, in 2 couple of weeks, whatever happens, we're going to continue, and it is a marathon. Everything that happens, we are going one step back. I think you see those computer games, I always say these computer games that you're fighting and punching an enemy, and at the top of it, it says how much of a life that has, and it goes down and down. We just don't see that. That part of a screen is blurred. Every punch counts. But just we don't see how many lives the Islamic Republic had. The next time that something happened that could be a lance punch, eventually it's going to be a game over on the screen. I'm 100% sure of that. But from the beginning, I myself knew it's going to take time, and I knew it's going to be maybe a lifetime fight for me, but hopefully not for my child. You know what it is again, when we see the fight still exists here. For me, the fight is not, there's a difference for me between regime change and revolution. Regime can change if the UK and if the world wants, the regime can change like this. But that doesn't mean women going to have their right in Iran. So, that fight, that's big fight against patriarchy.
Yeah, we say
at least I look at it like this.
We say regime end, not regime change.
Yes, exactly. If this regime ends, yeah. But again, that is not a revolution. Those are 2 different things. Not, in my point of view, I don't want only Islamic Republic to go. I want the revolution. I want everything to change. Yeah, we are in a very long run.
No, we're with you on that one. I think that's what everybody.
Yeah.
I think we are running over 40 minutes, so we're just going to have one last point. But before we do, I'd just like to come back to you, Shideh, and say that at the beginning, only a few things were happening. It was very focused on the action. Now everyone is doing their own projects. You're doing your project. Next to you, Anahit is doing the Say Their Names art project. Niki's working on her projects. Niaz is working on her. Everyone has diversified, and that it means it's a groundswell. So although it feels like you're seeing less and there's less momentum towards those single actions, actually it's gone deeper. The roots are growing, and that information gathering, which you full well know, and all that solidarity building is now working on a horizontal level as opposed to vertical level where everyone can hear you, and that's an important thing that Samaneh would probably agree in what she's saying about the long run. So last question.
More of a statement. Woman life freedom is not in past tense, guys. It's still in motion. We're still on it. Every single one of you and I are still working 24/7 on it. In Iran, everybody is united. We in London are united. We're working together, and this is still moving. Woman life freedom every day, guys. Come on.
I'm gonna just add one thing. We don't have a proper website yet, but you know me and Shida, and so Azadi Network, join us, because the idea is, as you mentioned, we are all sitting on our own different boats, and we have autonomy over what we are doing. But the important thing is, whenever is needed, we need to be able to create alliances and work together towards bringing down Islamic Republic. And it wouldn't happen unless spaces like this are there, and then we have communication with each other and know when who is doing what. And we are hoping that we can be that facilitator for you guys to connect, work together on causes that are close to you. You might say, I work with this person, or not that. It's not up to us. We would facilitate the collaboration. So if you want to join, just let us know, and then we can talk about the details. Thank you.